And welcome everybody to another glorious episode of the Put on Waivers podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here. Beautiful night. It's so nice and beautiful out here in Southern California. We love it. We love it. Let's see here. We got a lot going on. NFL draft just ended. A lot of teams made a whole lot of different moves. So we're going to dive right in um, with with Jake Hatch here. He covers the BYU Cougars. They did make some hay in the draft. The second pick in the draft went their way. And then all of a sudden, I mean, you got a bunch of guys going to the Panthers, going to a bunch of different places here. Jake Hatch joins Ryan Holmes and myself on the Put on Waivers podcast NFL show. How you doing today?
Doing well, guys. Thanks for having me again.
Okay. Let's go right to the Jets here. The Jets take Wilson here. People, made a little joke about him on the stage with everybody else. He looked timid to go on the stage. Anything they can find to throw a little salt in the wound here with Zach Wilson. But just now that he's there and they have the coordinator who seems like he would be a good fit for Robert Saleh is the head coach. What the Jets feel like they have their guy here. Why do you think it's going to be successful in New York with Zach Wilson?
I think the biggest thing with Wilson is he's got this self-belief, and it's borderline cockiness. I guess depending on your point of view, it probably would be cockiness, but he really does have a belief that he can go out there and have success no matter what he's doing on the football field. He carried that into his time at BYU. Took over the starting quarterback at BYU as a true freshman. He's the youngest guy to ever start a game at quarterback for BYU in their football history. I think he has the belief he can go in and really revamp what the Jets' history has been, because we all know how tortured a fan base they have out there. Joe Namath really is their most famous player, and that's 50 years ago since he last was really relevant as a player for the New York Jets. So I just think overall his self-belief in himself is absolutely going to be his major, I guess, selling point.
Yeah, I think. I mean, listen, it's going to have to be because the Jets are not been very good for a long time. So that offensive line is going to be huge in trying to protect him. So the BYU Cougars had some other people get drafted. We do talk a little Raiders on the show, as you can tell, probably behind us. Matt Bushman is going to be a Las Vegas Raider. People's, you watch the highlights, stuff like that. The over the shoulder catches. He can make some plays down the field. What kind of tight end and who would you kind of comp him for Raider Nation to kind of say he's a little bit like?
He's a true Y tight end, a true kind of split out tight end, guy who can play in the slot. He's not going to be the world's best blocker, but he's improved greatly during his time at BYU as a blocker. It was something that their former offensive coordinator, Jeff Grimes, really challenged him on when he first showed up at BYU. This was Bushman's sophomore year is when Jeff Grimes joined the program as their offensive coordinator. He really put the screws to Bushman and said, if you want to be a guy who can play in my offense, you have to be able to block. And he really worked on it. I saw him do it multiple times after practice. He would hang out on the practice field, working with the tackling sled and whatnot, just working on his form with that. But this is a kid who just is a pure pass catching tight end. A funny note about this is his father-in-law is Chad Lewis, the former Philadelphia Eagles great. That's his father-in-law. And funny enough, if I'm not mistaken, John Gruden was Chad Lewis's position coach for a time with the Philadelphia Eagles. So there is a connection there between Bushman, Chad Lewis, and John Gruden. Gruden also is a guy who has liked BYU tight ends in the past. As you guys might remember as Raiders fans, Doug Jolly from the early 2000s was a guy who came out of BYU, was there with Gruden in his first stint as the head coach with the Raiders when they were back in Oakland. I think that he sees something in Matt Bushman. It is my opinion that Bushman was on his way to the NFL before suffering that Achilles injury. Should he recover fully from it, I think the Raiders have got another good tight end on their hands. I know Darren Waller is the headliner at that position for them, but there's no reason for me to believe that Matt Bushman can't be a perfect complement for what Waller does for the Raiders.
Yeah, Doug Jolly had hands that Ricky Dudley didn't. So we would definitely appreciate that. A couple other guys who got drafted. Brady Christensen goes to the Panthers. Thoughts about him? Kind of get that line in order for the new quarterback there, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I am interested with Brady. I think he could be a guy who could start early on in his run with the Panthers. The biggest thing for me is his arm size. He doesn't have the longest arms in the world, and we all know that the NFL is all about having that extra length on the outside when it comes to a tackle. So I think that Brady could end up starting at guard for the Panthers. I think his ceiling is probably to be a starting right tackle in the NFL, if that ultimately is where it comes to. But he's got elite athleticism. He kind of overcame that lack of arm length and really showed what he could do at BYU at left tackle. But I think he'll be an impact guy for the Panthers.
Troy Warner went to the Rams. We've got a lot of Rams fans who watch the show. Watch our NFL show. What about him?
I like Troy a lot. He's the younger brother of San Francisco 49ers standout Fred Warner. Very much a different type of player. He's not as big as Fred. Fred is 6'4", 225, 230 pounds. Troy is about 6'1", 190 pounds. More of a true safety type of a guy. When Troy is at his best, he is going to be a guy who can be a rotation player in the NFL, I believe. He's probably more likely to be suited for a special team / backup role to begin his career in the NFL. He had some injury concerns during his time at BYU, overcame a Liz Frank injury in his foot, has come back fully from that, was a team captain for BYU last year on the defensive side of the football. A really, really good football player. I think he'll be a fun guy to watch, but the biggest thing is he's got to make sure his health is in order. He's got to be able to stay healthy to stay on the field.
Who is replacing Zach Wilson for Kalani Sitake next year? Because that's going to be a big chore before I turn you over to Ryan and talk some Niners.
So I think the biggest thing with what Kalani's got on his hands, he's got a true three-way battle at quarterback here. Jaron Hall, Jacob Conover, and Baylor Romney are the three guys who are going to be battling it out this offseason on into training camp to replace Zach Wilson. It's my personal belief that Jaron Hall's got the inside track. He's been the backup for most of the time behind Wilson during Zach's 3 years at BYU. He's a junior. He's got similar athleticism to Wilson. He's got a big arm. It's my belief that he'll be the odds-on favorite to earn the job, but they truly are going to have a three-way battle to find out who will replace him, and that'll probably be determined, I would guess, midway through August.
Ryan?
Yeah, Jake, I just wanted to touch on, I understand you cover the 49ers as well, so I have a couple quick questions for you. One, obviously, Trey Lance, they gave up a lot. They gave up 3 future ones to move up, and they're rolling down the dice with a kid who hasn't played a lot of college football, definitely hasn't done it against a high-level competition, and doesn't have very many games where he's attempted 20 or 25 more passes. So can you talk about how he kind of fits into Shanahan's system? And then also Trey Sermon they took as well, the running back out of Ohio State. Where does he kind of fit into the backfield there?
So here's the thing with Lance is I'm as curious as anybody to see what he does, because for better or for worse, this is a moment in the tenure of both John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan that's going to either make or break them, because as you mentioned, they gave up a ton to move up to take him in this draft. If he pans out, great. They're probably set for the next decade plus at quarterback. If he doesn't, they both may be looking for jobs in the next 3 to 4 years. That's simply how it goes, I feel like, with this type of a pick. I'm with you. He has not played a lot of football, did not play at the highest level in college. I was as stunned as anybody to see him that in 2019, he had no interceptions during his run with North Dakota State there. I can tell you this much, though, based on what I've seen on film from him, Kyle Shanahan has never had a more athletic quarterback to work with. He's had guys who can do certain things. Kirk Cousins had some athleticism to him, but Trey Lance offers a whole new skill set as a passer and just as a true athlete at the quarterback position. I think Shanahan's probably thinking of all kinds of different things to use him. I think that it's probably going to take some time for him to really become the guy. I think that's why they're holding on to Jimmy G, keep Garoppolo in the fold, let him kind of start out the year. And if he falters, then Lance hopefully is seasoned to that point, and then you can insert him into the starting lineup. But I really, really like this skill set there. But is it a really, it's a franchise making or franchise changing moment with that pick. Either it's going to be a boom or a bust, and we're going to find out over the next 3 to 4 years. Now, with regards to Trey Sermon, I really like him as a running back. I loved watching him at Ohio State. He's a hard-nosed, big back who absolutely loves contact. I think he'll do well with what they're trying to do with the 49ers. I think anybody who pays attention to what the Shanahan system does knows that they can take a running back seemingly off of the discarded pile over there and make them into a near all pro. But when you can get a true talent, I think a guy like Trey Sermon offers. I think Kyle Shanahan can do some fun things. He'll add to a new element. I think that kind of that bruising power back style to what the 49ers do. And I'm looking forward to seeing him suiting up for San Francisco.
Definitely. They're going to have to build around the run game, obviously, which that system has to support the young quarterback. And then you start looking at his weapons. You see some guys out there, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. My next question is, do you think they have enough on the outside at the wide receiver position to support the rookie quarterback, or do they need to go out and find a veteran to add to this mix? Because those two guys outside are pretty young.
My short answer is no. Honestly, I feel like they need more talent out there to give him more weapons. Honestly, George Kittle is a weapon. There's no doubt about it. And obviously, in my opinion, they need to probably use him to even a higher degree if they possibly can. I'm not sure that maybe they can't. Maybe they need to find another tight end to put out there with him. That I know that guys like Ross Dwelly, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, have been good options for them, but he's not a true game-changing type of player. But I'm with you. The wide receiver position, they have not really invested in it all that heavily. I know Brandon Ayuk was a high pick in the NFL draft, but has not necessarily shown a lot so far. I hope they have enough, but I'm worried that they don't.
Yeah, I have the similar questions. Both those guys are similar in skill sets. They run after the catch, short screens, hooks, slants. They're not guys that are going to run down the field and run by guys, and they're not guys that are going to win a ton in the red zone unless it's, the gimmick, flight motion type of stuff. So when they get down in the red zone with a rookie quarterback, they might be kicking a lot of field goals this year if they can't run the ball. But flipping over to the defense, I have a couple of defensive questions. First, the cornerback position. They don't seem to have a lot of depth there, not a lot of star power, and they're in a division now with Matt Stafford, Russell Wilson, and Kyler Murray. Do you think they have enough on the back end of that secondary? Assuming the pass rush is going to be okay with Bosa coming back, but do you think they have enough to cover the receivers in the NFC West?
See, they've got an interesting philosophy, and the way I understand it is they believe that a legendary or a fearsome pass rush makes up for not having the standout guys in the secondary. And okay, you can debate that till the cows come home, whether it's the cornerbacks that make the defensive line or the defensive line that makes the cornerbacks. But I'm with you. I think the depth is very thin there. I know that Richard Sherman is still kind of going through his options with regards to where he's going to sign. If the 49ers could find a way to bring him back, I think it'd actually be a very good pickup for them. Despite him being in an advanced age, he's now entering his mid-30s. He's very much towards the tail end of his career, but he's still proven to be a pretty solid player. And if he could come in, they'd have to really work with the massaging the salary cap to make it work for him. I understand that, but they need some guys out there in the secondary because they are very thin. That pass rush, if you have everybody healthy, if Nick Bosa is healthy, you're going to have a fearsome pass rush. They're going to be able to get after the quarterback, and that will help that secondary because opposing quarterbacks won't have much time to throw it. But I'm with you, Ryan. I look at it, the quarterbacks they got to face 2 and 3 times each season. It looks like you're going to need a lot of bodies. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, that leads me right into the pass rush, and this will have a kind of a Raiders slant to it, obviously. But they picked up Maurice Hurst as an interior rusher and Arden Key as an outside rusher. As a Raiders fan, I've seen glimpses from those guys, but nothing that was ever stand out. It didn't surprise me that either one of them got released based on the film breakdown over the last couple of years I do on them. But one, do you see them fitting into some sort of rotation? And do you think they're both givens to make the roster? Because they do have some depth along the defensive line.
I think Hurst is more likely than Key at this point. That's just my personal opinion. And I can't speak for John Lynch. Obviously, he's the guy who's going to make the decision on what the roster is going to look like with Shanahan's input. But I think Key is a guy they're going to try and see if they can get anything out of him. I'm with you. I've watched plenty of Raiders football over the years. I've got a brother who's a big Raiders fan, and we've watched plenty of it. And I've seen things from Hurst and Key that I'm like, okay, there's some talent there. And Arden Key, when he was at LSU, was very, very good at the college level. And I thought he was going to be a high-level pass rusher in the NFL coming out, and just hasn't panned out to this point. I think the 49ers are betting on bringing these guys in, letting them understand the system while also having guys playing in front of them who can really kind of show them what they're trying to do. And maybe if it pays off, yeah, it's kind of that low end. You took a flyer on a guy and it paid off in a big way. Great. You scored on that one. But I think the 49ers are very well stocked in the trenches. It looks like on paper right now. Of course, you got to assume full health for all these guys, which was something that they have not had for the majority of the past 2 years. If they are fully healthy, the pass rush is going to be key, and it's going to be a big part of what they do on defense. And there's no reason that Hurst and or Key can't be part of that, but they have a lot to prove.
Yeah. And one final question. I don't know. D Ford, like, does he have anything left? What's his deal? Is he even playing?
I forgot about D Ford.
Hey,
do they have any expectations of D Ford for this year?
I think that they hope that he has something left in the tank. They still have him on the roster, but I'm with you. I got no clue what is left for it. Injuries have been the hallmark of his tenure with the 49ers. When he's been on the field, he's been a fairly decent player, but that's been too far in between different times he's been on the field for them. It's just been injury after injury who's ruled him out. I'd love to see the old D Ford out there for the 49ers. I'm a 49ers aficionado, as you guys probably are aware, but man, it's kind of funny you mentioned I didn't even remember him. It's just he has not been on the field all that often, and that's just a huge question mark for San Francisco.
Yeah, so I mean, this is going to be a pressure cooker for Lynch and Shanahan here. This is no question about it. Everybody's watching to see what happens here, because this division is by far and away the toughest division in football. I mean, this is when you got 4 quarterbacks like that, it's going to be tough to see what happens. And you guys won't have Jared Goff to beat up on anymore. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone to Detroit.
Off to Detroit.
Lions. Yeah. Detroit. Jake, thank you for joining us here on the Put on Waivers NFL show. Appreciate the time, man. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you.